Welcome to Connecting Chats. Today we're going to be talking with Ryan Humphrey. Ryan is a PhD researcher at York St. John University, where he's examining the language around ownership, empowerment, and transformation within community music context. Enjoy! Okay, we're live and everywhere here today with Ryan Humphrey. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you for the
Connecting
invite.
Chats. Cheers to our Connecting Chats. That's it. Very nice. Probably a cold drink today, right? I don't know about where you are, but here is very warm.
Yeah, we've got nice sunny weather up in the northeast today, which makes a change.
So where are you talking from, Ryan?
So I come from a little village just outside of Durham. So it's about 30 to 40 minutes away from Newcastle.
Are you there now?
Yeah, so that's where I'm based, yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. So let's get started then. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your background and yeah, well, you started already saying where you're from, but like anything else you'd like to tell us about
Yeah.
your roots?
Yes, so I'm a community musician and PhD researcher based in the northeast of England. And my PhD is through the University of York St. John. As a community musician, I deliver for a number of organisations in the northeast, including Sage Gateshead, Arc Stockton, the Northern School of Music, and Durham Music Service, delivering a range of projects. Mostly a lot of the time with early years. Early years become kind of an area of specialism. But I also work across other programs and with participants aged 55 plus through what the SAGE calls Silver Strand. So
I
it's
really
kind of,
like that name. Yeah, that's cool. Well, you give a big picture already. Like I would like to go back a little bit to the beginning of Ryan's life then, and can you tell us a little bit about how your involvement with music started and your early, yeah, and if you maybe tell us about your formal kind of music education, and then we go from there. Like if you can
it's,
tell us a little bit about how you started and everything.
yeah, it's one of those things actually. When I think about it, I don't know kind of where the interest kind of sparked from. There's nobody in my family, in close family, that is particularly very musical. I think the closest we ever got to before was my sister played the violin for a couple of years while she was at secondary school or primary school, but she didn't really carry it on. But I always remember it was something that I was really interested in from quite a young age. What it was that interested is, I don't know, when I knew I was doing this chat today, I was kind of thinking about it. What was it that got us into this in the first place?
Mm.
But yeah, I used to love doing it at school, and I wanted to learn to play the violin like my sister did. And I remember going and doing this test. You had to do this ear test, and I was in like year four, and I didn't pass the mark. So that was the end of the violin career. That didn't happen. And then when the film School of Rock came out with Jack Black, I don't know whether you've seen that.
No. Oh,
No, so
the film. Yeah,
the film,
yeah, I've seen.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I haven't watched it, but I know of it. Yeah.
yeah. So I remember watching that film when I was about 8 or 9, and
Right.
seeing all of these kids learning to play the guitar. And I said to Mum and Dad, I was like, I want to learn to play the guitar. And I thought it was going to be as simple as what they made it look in the film. I thought I was just going to pick up the guitar and just be able to strum along a few songs and write my own original songs. And probably as we all know, that's probably not the case that often. So yeah, so the guitar didn't stick either. So I kind of did the guitar for a few years and then kind of give that up. And then got to secondary school, and for some reason decided to do singing lessons. I think that was probably one of the only things that was available kind of for you to take up. So starting in year seven, starting to do singing lessons, and very much based around this classical genre of music. So I did very much classical traditional material
Wow.
all of the way through to year 10. And then in year 10 had to choose GCSEs and was kind of not sure whether to take music or not. It was something obviously I really enjoyed doing, but actually found it quite difficult at the same point. It wasn't something that came naturally to us. I had to put a lot of work into it. So I wasn't too sure whether to do it, and it was kind of my mum kind of really pushed it. She was like, actually, you've done all of these singing lessons, you've actually got a real interest in it. You should go off and do it as a GCSE. So kind of took it, not really knowing what to expect or anything, whether I'd actually even pass or not.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first getting the mock kind of initial assessment of what they predict you would have come out with, and the music teacher, I had quite a very traditional formal music teacher, was like, the best he's going to come out with is a D. He'll do well in his performance, but everything else is probably not
Oh,
going to be.
no.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but you're
I,
making it a little bit of a comedy of it.
yeah, but no, but yeah, and yeah, stuff like composition was just like something completely different, and music theory, but performance stuff was all good. But I did put a lot of effort in actually, and eventually came out with a B. And
Word, that's
over
great.
the moon with that, yeah, it was over the moon. And then that kind of led us on to doing A level music, again going down this very traditional route. Still continuing with very much singing lessons, but along the way, I decided to pick up the piano as well, because my initial aim was always to go off to uni and train to be a music teacher. Once I got to
Right.
sixth form, I was going to go and be a classroom music teacher, and so I decided. So on the from my A levels teachers, they were like, you should learn to play the piano as well. So I kind of picked up the piano and was singing, and applying to do a traditional classical music degree at Newcastle University.
Okay.
Um, and alongside that, I had applied to do the jazz popular and commercial degree at the University of Sunderland, but it was delivered at Sage Gateshead. Um, and on even though I didn't know anything about the community music degree that was running there or anything. So this kind of leads into where I kind of started to get into community music. But I didn't get the grades to get into Newcastle, and then didn't. Then the jazz popular and commercial degree was later cancelled by the University of Sunderland. So I was kind of stuck there with not knowing what to do, where to go. But offered a place to go and do this community music degree. I had no idea what it was, or what it
In
entailed.
Newcastle, is that in Newcastle?
Yeah, so it was based at Sage Gateshead, but delivered at the University of Sunderland, and it was all about training students up, to be able to go off and do workshops or work in educational settings. It was very much a kind of very much open degree, but very much practice based, and you were based in the Sage Gateshead, so very much from the start of my degree, I was kind of in this community of practice, being able to observe lots of practitioners and engage in lots of different opportunities to visit workshops across, like from orchestral workshops all the way through to kind of early years workshops.
Yeah.
Um, but I had no idea what the degree was when I first got in. One of my earliest memories was sitting in a classroom only after, well, I say a classroom, a lecture room, after only being there for about 4 weeks, and having an early years practitioner come in and having us all sitting on the floor doing a hello song and introducing ourselves through the hello song, and it was kind of sat there. I was like, what type of degree is this?
Uh,
Um, but then
Very interesting.
actually, yeah, kind of found my way and really started to grow in and enjoy it, and kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I think I want to go into that in that part of your life that is more relevant here as well as to talk about your PhD and everything. But did you? It's interesting to see someone from the classical background kind of having this shock, isn't it? Of like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sitting on the floor and doing a hello song. What does this mean? But did you have any kind of informal musical practice like when as a teenager or as a child even like to kind of to relate to or nothing at all?
So nothing. I think my mum probably used to take us to, when I was like really young. He probably used to take us to some music classes, but not enough for us to remember.
Yeah.
I think the closest I'd ever come to engaging in any sort of community music project was, when I was in about year 11 at school. I went and did this summer course, and it was a songwriting workshop actually, and they kind of had us on the floor making song. We were in a band and we were making song lyrics using newspaper
Ah, I see.
newspaper to kind of create song lyrics. But obviously at the time, did not recognize that that was this thing called community music.
No,
I
of
had,
course not.
yeah,
It was a more creative process, wasn't it? Like
yeah,
in comparison to your normal lessons of instrument
yeah,
and
definitely. It was kind of, you know, it was really letting you explore the things you were interested in music, which necessarily was something that I didn't find necessarily all of the time in the more formal educational route of music.
did you enjoy it at the time?
I did at the time, yeah.
Did you feel
It,
scared or something? How did that feel? Do you remember how you felt being so alien to you? How did that feel?
yeah, it was quite. I don't know. I'm quite a chatty kind of outgoing person anyway, so I probably just went with the flow looking
Yeah,
back. But
it's
probably at the time was probably a little bit like, oh, I need somebody to make the decision of what it is that we're doing instead of like, yeah, I
yeah,
don't know. It's a very strange. Like I always remember one of the placements I undertook at uni, and you kind of it was the very first placement I did in a school, and it was a band workshop, and I was with these other two practitioners, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll just let the participants like make their decision, like make the decisions for what the music's going to be and stuff like that." And I was like, "How?" I was like, "What is our role then? Like, what are we
Are
doing
you
here?"
sure?
Like, yeah, but yeah, yeah,
That's amazing. That's great. So from what I understood, you kind of got into community music as a little bit of an accident. Is that like could we say that? And
yeah.
then can you tell us a little bit how you fell in love with it and if you did and I'm assuming you did and what were the things that made you kind of think like, whoa, wait a second, this is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Did you have a moment of realization? And
Yeah, I mean, so I definitely fell into it by accident. Like I said, I was on this degree course. I had no idea what it was that I was
yeah,
doing. For at least the first 6 months of it, I was kind of wandering around going, what am I meant to be doing here? And I did one of the things that was really a big eye opener for me was in the second year we had this amazing practitioner who I now work with come in to deliver a project, an early years kind of a little staple part of a project for us, working with looked after children. It was an early years project, and I just remember them talking about it and the different impacts they'd seen, and then getting to go along and see the project as part of a placement, and just being there and kind of and just seeing everything and kind of going, wow, this is something that I want to be involved in a little bit further, and this is something that I can see the impact. For me, one of the things that I love about community music is understanding the potential impacts that we can have through our work, and that for me, I always think, even in my kind of one-to-one, very much formal teaching lessons I do for instruments, I always think more about the wider aspects that could be impacted on through the lesson. That's not just musicality, and I could see that through these sessions. The project was called Loud and Clear, and so I was originally just meant to stay at the project for like 2 weeks shadowing, but I remember emailing and being like, actually, can I just stay just like for as long as possible? I'm just going to stay here, and ended up staying there, and for like about 4 or 5 months, just continuously week in. And the one good thing about the degree, which was definitely being kind of the pinpoint for getting us into community music, was that because you were part of the organisation, you were able, the facilitators on there understood what it was that you were meant to be doing through the course. So they would offer opportunities within the sessions for me to have a go at leading stuff.
yeah,
So through being there for 4 or 5 months, I kind of grew in knowledge of early years practice and when working with these looked after children, to the point that when somebody went on maternity cover, because I'd been there and I'd kind of embedded myself into the project, the position was then offered for me to take it on as maternity cover, and that was kind of the first steps in. So I think that looked after children's project was kind of definitely the key point for me to kind of recognise that this is something that I want to be involved in further, and kind
amazing.
of
And can you remind, I don't know if you mentioned already the name of the degree?
the degree. Yeah, so it was a BA honours in community music based at
Ah.
the University of Sunderland. So it's not running now, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the difficulties with community music in higher education. I think A levels and GCSEs are very much focused on the traditional forms of music making, and that you don't get, and obviously exam syllabuses and everything else, you don't get the opportunity to dig into what other options are available as a student. And so nobody had ever said, "Oh, community music is a thing you can be involved in."
No.
So I think when courses in higher education are set up with the title community music, people like me in the position that I was in probably don't sign up for the course, just end up there accidental and then
Yeah.
find the love for it.
Amazing. It's weird, isn't it? Like lots of masters and degrees are just ending out of the blue, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's like, what's going on? But anyway, um, and now like I know you're a PhD researcher now, and before we talk a little bit about what is your the research is focused on, can you tell us a little bit about the place where you do it? Because you do it in New York, right, at the St. John University,
yeah,
and is that there's the International Center for Community Music there, and I know there's lots of big names involved there. So can you give us a little bit, a little, no, like a quite a nice picture of what is the department, what kind of projects you guys run there, what kind of research, what kind of courses, whatever. I
yeah,
honestly don't know much about it, so that would be great to
yeah. So
get
the
as much as
yeah,
you can.
yeah. So the International Centre for Community Music is based at York St John. So it's been based there since 2015, and it's led by our director, Professor Lee Higgins,
Yeah.
who most people know for community music in theory and in practice. And so through that, we recognise ourselves not based as a centre that's housed in one place, but we more envisage the International Centre as a portal. So we open a space for people to connect with one another. And what we try and do is a lot of our research and projects are always about trying to bring together community music theory and community music practice together, because that's something that in academic discourse and in the past there's been a bit of tension against. So all of our work is around that sort of stuff. So we've got a team of researchers. So I'm a PhD researcher. We've got another three PhD researchers, and
Joe
we've got
Gibson is one of them, right? Joe.
yeah, so Jo Gibson. Yeah, she's one of our PhD researchers. Yeah, doing a practices research. So that's the other thing about the centre. All of the PhDs are kind of exploring community music, but they all use different methodologies and different approaches. So we've got practices research as one approach, and we've got two MA students, and we run an program as well, the MA in Community Music at York St John,
Okay.
which is very much it's a research based master's program that is full time and part time. And through the ICCM as well, we do a lot of symposiums. So every year we run a student research symposium, which we aim to get postgraduate researchers involved in to come and share their research. But it's not finished products of research. It is, it could be stuff that people are working on. And we try to provide a forum where people can get support and get some feedback on their work to help them progress it forward. We also run a student-led journal as well, Transform, which is an opportunity for postgraduate researchers to send in their work and have it published in a peer-reviewed journal, which is something that is quite tricky as someone that's been through the process. It's quite a daunting process. So Transform is there as a supportive mechanism to give students the opportunity to do that. And then we've got a series of digital events happening in the autumn as well, which Joe's heading up. And I think it's on the Soundcastle page as well, actually. And it's kind of just another opportunity to kind of connect with people and have discussions around community music, theory and in practice. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's very interesting. I've been reading because of I was gonna meet you, but of course I heard about it before because of Lee Higgins and but yeah, but just trying to get to know more about it sounds really, really like a very kind of a center for, well, it is a center, but like kind of I don't know, like a meeting point almost, isn't it? Like where
Yeah, that's
people can
definitely.
exchange and feel supported in lots of different ways, isn't it?
Yeah, that's definitely the aim of it, is to provide a way to connect up people, because there's so much research and so many projects happening globally that it's important that as a field we find a way to kind of come together and discuss what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it and
Yeah.
all that sort of thing. And the ICCM is definitely kind of a way of bringing people together through that.
And how did you get involved with them? Like, was that just a normal kind of process of PhD researcher, or how did it happen?
Yeah, so I was involved right the way from the start, actually. So even though I was based at the University of Sunderland, I had a module to do on my undergraduate degree, which was very much a research-based module, and the lecturer that was leading it had been a student at York St John and had connections to the music department. And it said that there was a conference happening and they were in the middle of setting up this international centre, and that the research I was undertaking, might be a good opportunity to show that. So I kind of got involved in the first year of my undergraduate degree, presenting a paper, um, which looking back was definitely not very research kind of strength. There was no like real methodology to it or anything like that, but it was a good opportunity to kind of go there. So I went and presented and just continued getting involved in the stuff that they were doing, until 2017, when I finished my degree. I applied to do a master's by research there, looking into the potential impact that music making had for looked after children. So I did a case study approach, working with three projects. One being, well, two of them being Loud and Clear at Sage Gateshead, which are projects I'd worked on,
Yeah.
and another one being with Soundlinks in Lincolnshire.
Okay.
And they were doing some work trying to train up foster carers and social workers to develop musical skills so that they could then go and work with the children musically and develop relationships. So my research was really around interrogating the approaches that they were using, the impact that it was having for the foster carers, and the impact that it was having for the children as well, engaging through the project. So I did that in 9 months. It was a very quick kind of process. It was a year-long master's by research of 30,000 words in
Wow, that's
9 months.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very intense.
Yeah.
But amazing experiences. We went to the ICCM held a conference in New York. So like 6 months into my masters, I was jetting off to New York with the rest of the team to help set up a conference at Teachers College, Columbia, and presenting some initial findings of a project to a group of people in New York. It was like so amazing to kind of eh, find a way to get your research out there, which
I
is often,
know, yeah. And
yeah,
to meet people and see
yeah,
see that you're not alone on that path, right? It's so important to kind of feel part of something else, now, like that you're not
yeah.
alone. And then can you, sorry, you're gonna say something else?
Yeah, and then that kind of led off to the PhD.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was gonna
yeah,
get to that,
kind
yeah.
of, yeah. So yeah, so I could kind of, yeah. So it kind of was just like the next step on the journey,
Okay.
really, to kind of get
It's
involved
kind of
with.
a natural thing that
Yeah,
that it would you could see it happening as it happened.
yeah, yeah,
And so I read a little bit about what your research is. Can you tell us? And don't you don't need to be economic with what it is, because that I find that sometimes like, oh, it's just a little research on this very quickly. No, can you tell us a little bit about what it is and where you are at with it now?
yeah. So it's a part-time PhD. I'll tell you what it is about today. I think everybody through the PhD process
Yeah.
kind of changes often. But So it is examining the concepts of ownership, empowerment, and transformation within community music. So I recognised through the masters and through my work and through the academic literature that these three terms were being used quite often within community music, but actual theoretical underpinning or exploration of what these terms actually meant hadn't been done. So I could kind of it was kind of one of those things where I was kind of recognizing myself using them, but I was going, actually, what does that actually mean? Like, how
Yeah.
do I know projects offer an ownership, and does the participant really feel like they've got ownership, or is that something I'm telling myself that they've got? So it's around exploring how these three concepts are being operationalized within community music discourse. So that's the full heading, but it's more of kind of a discussion on community music discourse and how that's developed and how that's manifested within practice. So yeah, so it's very much still at the kind of the beginning stages. It's a 6 to 7, well, up to 7 year process, and I'm about a year
Wow.
and a half through, which in full time land is probably about 9 months. So
Okay.
yeah,
So I can see some connecting chats in the future to review some of the conversations we're having today.
yeah,
Um, and how, like, can you explain a little bit how do you explore those themes? Like, I know there's a lot of probably there's a lot of reading on, as you said, like, this is being used in literature of community music, but do you also have a more practical research with it, and how that work? How does that work?
yeah. So one of the ideas I've got is to do 3 case studies. So a case study strategy and going actually to see the project. So one of the things that is really important in the research is to hear how facilitators are using these concepts to describe the practice. So kind of one of my ideas is to go and see different projects and gather facilitators' ideas of what ownership means to them, or how they think it relates to their practice, what empowerment means and how that relates to the practice, and then actually seeing the practice at hand as well, because it's important that if I'm hearing what the facilitator's saying, then it's important for me to be able to actually see some of these activities and see how that might be manifesting within practice. And then the other thing is to, through this case study strategy, to go and talk to the participants as well, and actually speak to the participants about their experiences of engaging in the project. Does the project make them feel empowered? What is it about the project that's making them feel empowered? Is it the approaches? Is it the activities? So my research is very much situated around a case study strategy as one
Yeah,
part of going to see the project and interviewing people and talking to
interviewing.
people.
Yeah.
And then another part of it is around what is called critical discourse analysis, which is all about the literature kind of stuff around digging into how these three ideas have manifested over time in community music discourse, which is something that I'm currently doing at the minute.
Really interesting. Wow, I'm really like I want to ask you so many questions about it. And do you how does your work because I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your main thing as a practitioner was with early years in looked after children. Yeah, that's your
Yeah,
main kind of thing.
yeah,
Uh, so the first question is, are there other things that you've been doing lately that, since you started working with community music? Have you done other activities as well, or this has been your kind of focus?
yeah. So the good thing kind of about the organisation I work for is they've got such a wide variety of projects on the go that I've been able to dip my toes into quite a few different things, and work across a few different projects. So I've done some work with children who are seen to be at risk, so at risk children, I think is what we would call them. So I did some work there. I also work with adults in other settings. So yeah, so it's kind of what I always try and do is try through the research I'm doing and through kind of trying to make them both fit together. So it'll kind of,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna ask that's where I wanted to get to, is like how do you relate your daily jobs with your research? Do you feel like they converse quite a lot, or do you feel like that, can you see, because the thing of using the language and everything, it when you're using the wrong language, it might kind of distance things, right? So
yeah,
can you see things kind of coming together,
yeah.
and is that how does that feel? And like, have you been using parts of your daily jobs into your research and vice versa?
Yeah, so definitely with the whole language thing, it was funny. I was talking to someone the other day actually about it, and I was like, actually, since I started the process, it's kind of I've really started to challenge the language I'm using when I'm like writing reports and stuff like that, and really
All
starting
right,
to think
yeah,
about what it is I'm doing. So in that respect, yeah, I mean, I haven't found a way yet to bring the actual practice totally into
yeah,
the PhD yet. But definitely, it just gets you thinking. I mean, the Masters by Research, even though that wasn't an examination of my practice, once I'd finished and I kind of looked back at the work and looked at the different approaches that facilitators were using, then that kind of was then able to feed into my practice
yeah,
because I kind of recognised that for these participants, it was more the social aspect, then the musical aspect was more important for them in the session. So then in my practice, I made sure that perhaps instead of rushing through to the next musical activity, I'd kind of take a step back and just allow a bit of socialization to happen before moving in. So I think it does feed in. It just feeds in very kind of small steps. You can
yeah.
kind of feel a thing, but the language thing definitely is kind of when as I started to kind of begin the interrogation of these concepts, has kind of already made us question whether it's the right terms I should be using. It's probably taken us a lot longer to write stuff now, which is probably not good for anybody. But
You're giving yourself and other people more work, right?
yeah,
No, that's good enough. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. We have a, I tried to do this as a, at the end of this conversations, a little experimentation on improvisation and freedom. So is what I call the feel free moment of the connecting chats. And the idea is that if you want to say anything we haven't mentioned here, or if you want to send a message to someone, or whatever you want to do, you have the time now to feel free in our connecting chat. So would you like to use that moment?
yeah, I will. I'll just offer kind of some advice that somebody, well, two pieces of advice that were given to me at the very early stages of my dipping into community music. One was to just believe in yourself, because I know as musicians and as people anyway, generally, we often kind of doubt or can be really critical of ourselves and what it is that we're doing. And I think if you believe in what it is that you're doing, and you can look back at a session and go, this perhaps didn't work as well, but you don't take that with you and kind of, remember that that didn't work well, think about what wasn't working well, and then next time, improve on that, but don't hold it to account so much to yourself. And the other one is just to remain open as well. I think one of the best things that kind of happened to me was every time somebody offered an opportunity to go and see a piece of work or to be involved, I kind of just said yes, and that kind of just kind of led on, because had I not said yes to going to see the early years project, one of my things I'd never imagined getting involved in early years, but had I not said yes and gone along to it, it might not have led to where I am now. I might have ended up somewhere completely different, and I'm pleased it did. So I think just being willing to say yes and go on a journey that you don't know is what the outcome's going to be is like really important.
Oh, that's amazing, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Thank
Let's
you.
do a last cheers
Cheers.
for connecting chats finishing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll see you very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cheers, Ryan.
See you later.